Breaking news, breaking news, breaking news. Yo, check it out. Sean Diddy Combs was sentenced to 50 months in federal prison. I went down there. I sat there for the sentencing because I had to see how it's going to go. I figured this is the first time I'm in court and I'm not the one being sentenced. So I went to watch this and I'm going to break this down. I'm going to let you know how it is. Diddy messed up when he gave that speech. Diddy should have never said nothing when he was in there. Y'all put in the comments if you think Diddy should have spoke or he shouldn't speak, and I'm gonna let you know why. He shouldn't have spoke. Let's keep it moving. All right. You know what it is, Unique Make Audio, man. Check it out. I went there and I sat in the overflow room down there at the Diddy trial, and I'm not gonna lie, I was disappointed. I was disappointed in a lot of things. His lawyers did an excellent job of putting on their defense, but the first thing the judge said when he came in there was that he found Diddy's letter disturbing. Now, how do you begin a sentence saying that the letter that you wrote that was supposed to get my sympathy, I found it disturbing? That's the first thing he said. So right there, I said, oh, he ain't going home. That's a wrap. All right. But now, as I sat there doing the trial, but let me break down the sentence. He got 50 months, because see, in the feds, they do everything by months so that by the time you calculate it, you out there daggone courtroom. All right? Because listen, I know a dude that got, 480 months, right? And he's in the courtroom and he's like, 480, 12 times. And he's like, asked his lawyer, how much time is that? And the lawyer said, no, come on, we'll talk about it in the back. They just wanted to get him out the courtroom. That joint turned out to be 40 years, man. But now he got 50 months, right? Out that 50 months, he gets time served. So, 50 months is 4 years and 2 months. So take that off of the year that he already did, and then now he's looking at 3 years. Right? Then he gets time off for good behavior. That's going to be another 6-9 months, right? So now we're talking about 2 years and change. And then he gets what they call the drug program, right? And, that's another year off. So that brings it down to a year. And then he could get the halfway house. They give you up to a year in a halfway house now. They used to give you 30 days. Now they give you a year. So you take those calculations off, and Diddy will be home by this time next year. By Christmas next year, Diddy will be home. But it looked like the judge just wanted to send a message, and the judge clearly said he wanted to send a message. When I sat there and I listened to how this whole thing played out, right? The first thing when that judge said that he found the letter disturbing, right? And then he said that he wasn't going to use, acquitted conduct because his sentence was already, written up. So in other words, it don't matter what Diddy would have said from that statement. The judge already said he already had the statement written up. The judge took time to write it up, man. It might have took him a week, a month, but whatever. He already took time and analyzed it, what he was going to give Diddy. He knew what he was going to give him. So he shouldn't have went up there and said nothing. I'm going to go back to that in a minute. But when I sat there and I looked in the joint, I could not even recognize Diddy. I'm sitting there and I'm looking at the screen and I'm trying to see who I know in the courtroom, behind the defense and all that. And I didn't see anyone that, I didn't see Diddy. And then when I looked again, I seen this old scraggly man looking like, Fred Sanford, with the salt and pepper here. And I said, oh, snap, I think that's Diddy. You know, because there's no longer the drawings that you see in the paper and you don't pay it no mind, those sketches. But I'm looking at him and he looks just like the sketches. They did a wonderful job. But Diddy looked at broken. That's all they wanted to do. They wanted to break him. When Diddy sat there in the courtroom and he heard his children speaking about, how they felt about him, you know, what a wonderful dad he was, it was like, it, 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 it it brought everyone to tears. They even started handing out napkins, what they get napkins, what they call it, tissues. They started handing out tissues, walking around with a box. The officer that was in there was walking around with a box, handing out tissues for females to wipe their eyes. That didn't move me then, but I'm not gonna lie. What did move me is when I saw Diddy get up there and he gave his speech. I said, don't do it, Diddy. Ask the people that was next to me. They'll put it up. I told them, Diddy, don't do it. Don't say nothing. It don't matter what you say, they're going to bang you out, So now, and what he said is going to come back to haunt him because Diddy went back to saying that he take full responsibility. He apologized to the victims. We know those are all the things you're supposed to say. But no, you're not supposed to say it when you're getting ready to go on appeal to appeal the sentence. And then before, in another hearing, I heard Diddy also tell the judge, oh, you did a wonderful job, Your Honor. You was fair. Thank you. They're going to use all those words in the decision making of his appeal. No matter how good your argument is, they're going to say, well, you told the judge on the record that you were satisfied with the way he handled, the trial when you found out you was acquitted of the RICO. You told the judge you were satisfied with the way he handled the proceedings and that he was fair and just. And now you're coming in front of me and telling me that you feel the very judge that you thanked in open court on your own free will and omission that he did something wrong? Wasn't you the one in the courtroom saying that he did a great job? That's why you don't do it. Then he turned around and he apologized to the victims. We know that they deserve an apology. Save that till you get out and you on free soil. You can't do that in a courtroom because, like I said, and like they tell you when they read you your Miranda rights, anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. So all of this groveling and apology that you did, Diddy, and I'm not saying that he shouldn't have apologized. I'm saying he shouldn't apologize in open court, knowing that he's getting ready to fight the sentence from the judge started off saying that he's going to, the letter was disturbing, And then, he was pouring out his soul, but at the wrong time. Because your soul pouring out is going to come back to bite you. Watch what I tell you. The appellate court is going to say your arguments are very strong. But you said at your sentencing and at the conclusion of your trial that the judge Soberanian did an excellent job and you were satisfied. And now you want to get them. And there's another thing, right? They ride. Right? Got to ride with the gunshots. Now, I'm going to take you on a ride. Now, and this the crazy part. First of all, I love Brian Steele. I saw Brian Steele when I was pulling up before I went in there. I saw Brian Steele pulling up, walking in with the young female lawyer that he had with him. And I told him, I said, you're the greatest. When Brian Steele stood up in a Young Thug trial, when they told him to snitch on who gave him that information, and they was going to give him 5 minutes, he said, I don't need 5 minutes because I ain't telling you nothing. They said, we're going to hold you in contempt of court. We're going to lock you up. Brian Steele stood up and took his jacket off and just handed it over to them and was waiting to be handcuffed. And then even asked them to be put in the cell with his client to serve his contempt time. How much more gangster can you get than that? So I had to give him flowers. I had to give him flowers. All right, relax, man. I had to give him his flowers for that, Rock. But I want y'all to pay attention to this. in the court, you have something when he goes on appeal. Right now, Diddy's going to be looking at appellate lawyers because they set up the stage for the appeals. But then there's also a major argument that's available to Diddy. Yeah, because it was available to me and anybody else that go in there. And if y'all been in the federal system, you know what it is. It's called ineffective assistance of counsel. So now he's going to get an appellate court that's going to look, appellate lawyer that's going to look over what he did, at trial, what these lawyers did at trial, and try and find how they was ineffective, how they let Diddy down. And we know Diddy thanked them for the great thing, da 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 da, how they handled the case. But now at the end of the day, they're gonna turn around and they're gonna take, whatever happened at the trial and hold Brian Steele and Mark Agaflelio and the everybody else, they're gonna hold them responsible, for an error that they felt went on during the course of the trial. That's called ineffective assistance of counsel, meaning your counsel fell below the standard of the performance you should have gotten. And we all heard and seen Brian Steele, and Mark Valerio, how they both work. And I think they did an excellent job. But in the feds, we have ineffective assistance of counsel. So that's where Diddy got to make a strong choice of saying, damn, do I flip on these lawyers now and listen to what these appellate lawyers are saying and charge, my buddy Mark, my new friend, Brian Steele, with working below the standard of the legal representation that I was supposed to get? That's called ineffective assistance counsel. So Diddy could get an appeal lawyer and he could appeal, the trial and the sentencing, and hold Mark Agafrilio and Brian Steele responsible for his conviction and his sentence. Do you think Diddy would be wrong if he did that? Or do you think Diddy should do that if there's an opening for him to get out of jail to throw Brian Steele and Mark under the bus? Put it in the comments. See how deep we get here. That's why I waited till everybody was done with all this, because I wanted to bring y'all the facts of what's going on. Now, like I said, the audience was crying when the kids went up there. I even saw a video. Let's ride. Because I'm going to do a video on it. Hold up. I'm going to do a video on it. I seen the joint where Suge Knight would call in the art of dialogue. And I'm going to say that was nothing more than hating, because, and like I said, I respect Suge Knight because I know he a gangster, but that wasn't gangster. Another man gets sentenced to prison and you're gloating, you're calling them puppy, you're disrespecting them, and then you're saying that Usher can't wait for him to come home, and you're shooting shots when your fellow comrade is down and you're in trying to get out like he's getting ready to get in. Like I said, I don't even want the very men that ratted on me to go to jail. I don't want my enemy to go to jail. And that's how it is when you're on the street. Like Suge even said, everything is street justice, if you're on the street. So if it's street justice, why are you on there, Suge, gloating and going in on them? Do you think Suge is right for doing it? Do you think he's wrong for doing it? Put it in the comments. But that's where we at, right? But now, when Puffy went up there and he gave his speech and he looked down and he started crying. Even when his daughters was up there, it was a very emotional time. But when I saw Puffy giving his speech, right, all I thought to myself is, they won. They broke him. They broke Diddler. What I saw was a broken man in that courtroom. And he's letting the enemy know Because, when they're going against you and they're trying to lock you up, they consider the enemy. So that's why I say that. But, the government's not an enemy of the people. Let's get that straight. That's not what we're saying. You know what I mean? The government put on a wonderful case. You know what I mean? The defense put on a wonderful case, and they both did their job. It's who sells the best story. But I want you to understand that when I saw Diddy broken in court, I said they won. That's all they wanted. They wanted to break him and humiliate him. They took him from way on top that we couldn't even see him. He was so high in the stratosphere, right? He was so far, so high. And they broke him down to be nothing. Now, you know what? All I kept thinking about while I was watching that joint is how, the pictures are going to be when he come home. I might have to make a thumbnail of that. I think I got to do something on that. Where Diddy now, with this Red Fox, Sanford and Son, salt and pepper beard, shoulders hung, pleading for his life. And then Diddy like they on the screen. Can you believe that? They went from that, right? They actually went from that to this. Hold up, we got to show this. We got to show this. This is Diddy now. So you could picture Diddy right there now, and then turn around and let's say Diddy Hig. They're going to put those pictures out side by side once he's released. And I've seen a lot of the commentary that the so-called legal experts are doing on it, and they don't have a clue. They don't have a clue. But, I'm going to react to, I'm going to react to some of them because I don't like the way it played out, But when Diddy went up there and I saw him broken and him apologizing to the court, that broke my heart. When I got sentenced, right, could we ride? When I got sentenced to life and I was facing life in prison, right? Multiple lives. But when I got sentenced, the judge chose to give me life plus 20. So before he even handed down the sentence, he asked me if I had anything to say. I knew he was going to give me life. So what the hell am I going to say when I know I have to appeal this? I got to appeal this sentence. So whatever I say at this sentence, like they said, anything you say can and will be used against you in the court of law. So what do I look like saying I'm sorry for poisoning my community, I'm sorry for destroying, other people's lives, I take full responsibility for everything I did, and I know I'm going to get life anyway. Just like Diddy knew he was going to get banged out anyway. Because the judge told him before he even started. I listened to the joint because I was in the overflow room. The judge said, your letter was disturbing, and, I didn't use the what do you call it? He said, I didn't use the acquitted conduct, is what the judge said. He said, because it don't matter because I already have my sentence. Once he said that, what is there to talk about, Diddy? Why would they even tell you to go up there and say anything? That judge, listen, if that judge didn't release him after those children spoke, when his beautiful daughters spoke, everyone in the room was in tears. Except for me. But I did almost shed a tear. My eyes got watery. I'm gonna keep it 100. I'm a gangster, but I'm not no fake gangster to sit here lying. My eyes got a little watery, and I was too macho to ask the bailiff, the lady walking around, to hand me a tissue. So I had to take a finger and play it off like I was cleaning my glasses and taking them up and slid a finger under and wiped the tear from my eye because it broke my heart. Because his speech was excellent. Diddy's speech that he did in court was excellent. It was warranted. It was needed, but not at time of sentencing because it could come back and bite you in the time of an appeal. Diddy said nothing wrong doing. Every word was heartfelt, was from the heart. He did a wonder. His speech was perfect, but the judge's mind was already made up. So I don't understand what he was doing. And then what made it even worse, right? The prosecutor said, Your Honor, did this clown think he going home? he got gigs booked in Florida for next week, you know, and everybody looked around like, huh? But then his defense went up there and clarified it, and there'd be no. It's not that he has, paid speeches. Diddy is planning on giving back to the community, and he had speeches lined up to go to prisons in Florida and talk to the youth in Florida, and coming out and being a youth advocate because he sees what's going on now from the inside. They even had a young man that did time with Diddy, been in and out of jail, and said after doing time with Diddy, he got his life together and he's home and he's doing wonderful thanks to the time and the mentoring from Diddy. So they were trying to say they wanted to use Diddy to be a mentor. That's common sense. They did it to T.I. when he got caught up with the guns. Why they wouldn't do it with Diddy? But anyway, I'm sitting here and I'm watching this, and I think y'all want me to do a live on this later, man, because it's just so much, and I don't want to get into it. I don't want to drag it out. Would y'all like me to do a live later? Put in the comment you want me to do a live on this later, and y'all can ask me all the questions you want, and we could go from there. I think I'm going to do that later on today. But, let me get out of here. But make sure you subscribe to my daughter's YouTube channel, Juanita Mecca Audio and Real Boss TTTV, man. Go on over there, give them a subscription, and show that you're supporting the love. But, and my number is here if anybody want to call me to get on the live that I'm going to do later. I could bring you in the live. And, this is not live now, but my number's on the screen. You can call me, and I'll set it up so that I can send you a link, and you could come on and you could speak, whether it's for Diddy, against Diddy. We're not going to be biased. I know there's a lot of people that want him hung by the balls. Remember, I'm the one that said let the process play out. Now everyone sees how the process play out, and, things is lopsided, and could kind of clearly see now, what really happened, from hearing the testimony instead of the YouTube videos, right? And it's just, it's like so many people is feeling for Diddy right now, when everyone was hating on him. But they're seeing what's going on. Make sure you hit that like button, you know what I mean? So that we can do what we got to do. And you already know we like to ride. So let's get out of here.
Cheers, cheers, toast the crime, toast the crime, the crime, the crime, the crime.
Fresh out the can of 26, yeah. He back on the strip, getting back in the mix. Yeah. What he mentions a gift. Bruh. You stand up 10 toes down, and I suggest you pay attention to this. Real. Take a little gully posse and put it in home. He cut from the bottom, came up from the bottom. Drop the book, you should go and get it. An Instagram page and a YouTube you could go and visit. Yeah. Then you could consider yourself LinkedIn. Real. Sit front row and get Jews from a kingpin. How he went through it so you ain't gotta go do it. To not pay attention would be stupid. Talking about a man that probably put your grandfather on. Probably the reason that him and your grams got along. A man that generated millions on the block, did his time, never squilling to the cops, make an audio.